Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your...
It is the 17th day in space for Sports Off Swamp.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is truly wonderful to be here with all of you tonight in Houston. You know, gosh, 800 of you here. I'm from South Florida, and there's more people here than there usually are at a Florida Miami Marlins baseball game. So it's a great, great crowd. I'm so excited to be here. You know, there's a shopping mall in Los Angeles where thousands of people, just ordinary folks, gathered to watch the shuttle Endeavour roll by. It was supposed to be passing the mall at about noon. Noon came and went, no Endeavour. 2 o'clock came and went, still no Endeavour. 4 o'clock came and went, still no Endeavour. Even NASA's launch delays weren't that long. When Endeavour finally came into view, it was well after dark. But the crowd of thousands had not shrunk. The people stayed hour after hour waiting to get a glimpse of Endeavour. In fact, the crowd grew. Cheering, grinning, laughing, clapping, holding up their children as this remarkable space machine came into view and came down the street bathed in light. So if somewhere deep inside you, you quietly lament that space doesn't grab the public's attention anymore, I wish you could all have been there with me that day and night to see how the people reacted, to see the looks on their faces. There was, there is, and there always will be a fascination with space, a desire to touch the machines and the people who built them and flew them. Now, for more than 30 years, I have been fortunate enough to cover the space program. It was a spectacular journey. Along the way, I had the privilege to meet many, many wonderful, genuine, and kind folks. For instance, somebody many of you know, Dick Covey. After his return to flight mission following Challenger, Covey was so humble. I had asked him, I said, Dick, do you mind autographing a picture for me to my young son, Andrew? And he said, John, absolutely, not a problem at all. So Covey wrote, Andrew, when you get older, your dad is going to tell you he knew me. Don't believe him. So humble. I spent a year following Katie Coleman, a remarkable lady, as she prepared for her flight to the International Space Station. We had access to her training, we had access to her friends, we had access to her family. And when you spend that much time with someone, you find stuff out, right? So one day I'm with Katie. I'm saying, Katie, we got to go fishing sometime. Now remember, Katie Coleman flew on space shuttles twice, flew to the International Space Station. What does Katie say to me? I don't know, John. I get seasick. Clearly, I'm not the most objective person when it comes to the space program. But I will tell you this. When people ask me, what's happening in the space program? Are they doing anything anymore? I give them the obvious answers. Yeah, they're working on Orion, and they're working on heavy lift, and commercial space is taking off. But I also tell them this. I tell them, look up. Just look up. 250 miles up, the International Space Station. And a world away, Curiosity on Mars. Voyager officially out of the solar system and still sending back its space tweets. The Kepler telescope gave us mind-bending, stunning revelations about planets just in our own galactic backyard. So the next time someone asks you, just do what I do. Tell them to look up.
Hello, thank you for using our phone verification system.
Tonight we're going to honor many individuals who have made outstanding contributions to our space program. And I am especially pleased to assist in recognizing a good friend of mine, General Bolden, and Chris Hadfield. We will also present the Stellar Awards to 25 individuals and 10 teams. All of the Stellar nominees are listed in your program. Now, Unfortunately, Dave Thompson was unable to make it this evening, but the gentleman who graciously agreed to step in as our keynote speaker is someone I've known for many years, Frank Culbertson. Frank is a Naval Academy graduate, test pilot, fighter pilot. During his 18 years as a NASA astronaut, Frank flew 3 missions. Frank flew, that's a tough one. STS-38, Atlantis in 1990, STS-51, Discovery in 1993. As part of the Expedition 3 crew, Frank spent 129 days on orbit on the International Space Station in 2001. Frank was on board station during the tragic events of 9/11. Frank is now the Executive Vice President and General Manager of Orbital Sciences Advanced Programs Group. It is my great honor to introduce a man who is always a pleasure to be around and always a straight shooter, Frank Culbertson.
I hope this works. Thank you very much, John. Thank you for the introduction. It's a real pleasure to be here, and good evening to everyone. And thank you to the Space Center Rotary Club, the NASA Foundation for their invitation to speak to you this evening. My boss, David Thompson, was originally invited to speak, as John said, at this great event, and had planned to be here until an unforeseen minor medical procedure canceled all his travel plans for a couple of weeks. He sends his greetings and regrets and gratitude to the Rotary for the honor, and hopes that he'll have an opportunity to participate in this gala in the future. I suppose he's thinking that that may depend on how I do as his barely adequate substitute. At any rate, you'll have to settle for me in this role tonight. And by the way, there's a couple hundred people in here who've heard me speak before probably, and who I know pretty well, who are pretty amazed, first of all, that I've written a speech, and secondly, that I may keep it within the 10-minute time limit I was given. I've probably already blown that, but we'll press on. My sincere congratulations to my good friend Charlie. This is a great night, and I'm very happy to be a part of this, Charlie. And it's a long-deserved and certainly a well-deserved honor. And to all the outstanding stellar nominees who are here tonight, reading their lists of accomplishments gives me a great deal of confidence in the future of our community and our industry. Since I know that Charlie is going to deflect as much of this honor as he can to his teams, his parents, his family, and others, I have heard him speak before. And since David Thompson is not here to tell me that's enough, Frank, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I'm speaking first. Here's a fact that may only be really interesting to a few of us, but I find it fascinating that David Thompson all grew up in small towns in South Carolina, within the same decade and not very far from each other. You can figure out in which order we really grew up and in which decade, but that's only important because we all grew up in the middle of the 20th century. As the country was transitioning from a half century of amazing aviation development, 1910 to 1960, to the half century of fantastic achievements in space, 1960 to 2010, we all grew up in different cultural and educational situations, but we also all grew up in loving families who exposed us to as much of what was happening in the rest of the world as possible, while providing strong support, freedoms to pursue challenging goals beyond our own backyards, which I am sure is the case for many in this room, especially our stellar nominees. In our case, we did have some unusual connections. I know Bob Cabana doesn't do this for his introduction. I met Charlie when I was in high school, still pursuing my dream of attending the U.S. Naval Academy. The Academy sent Charlie home on leave early one year to do some recruiting, and I met him when he came to my little hometown, which took a lot of courage in those unfortunate days of segregation. He, of course, was already a very inspiring speaker and man, and he looked great in that Navy uniform. I don't know why he liked the marine green better, but he went that way. When I told my mom about meeting him, it turned out she and Mrs. Bolden, Charlie's mom, by the way, no one I know ever called her Ethel. She was quite a woman. Mrs. were ardents through an ecumenical civil rights group they had both participated in Colombia. When I finally did get to Annapolis, we both got messages from Mom saying, "You go find that other nice young boy from South Carolina and be good to him." I don't think they quite understood the relationship between the seniors and the plebes in the Academy military hierarchy. But Charlie did find me and has been a great friend ever since, preceding me to many of the milestones I had on my own flight plan of life. I'm very proud to have followed Charlie through many of the things we've done. Dave Thompson and I had a different connection that we didn't discover until a couple of years ago. Dave, of course, had his eyes on the stars early, apparently since he could put together models of any type. He started building rockets at an early age with friends, and apparently had a penchant for organizational skills even then, using the free labor of their younger siblings to chase down the rockets through the brush and pastures of Spartanburg County. This came in handy with his next problem, which was the fact that my uncle was the police commissioner of Spartanburg. And there were a number of complaints of unguided missiles landing in random yards in the city. A couple containing barely living spider monkeys. And therefore a number of encounters with the local law enforcement. He remembered my uncle's name. I think the cheap labor were the ones who were usually holding the evidence when the police showed up, however. And I wonder if that's why I'm here tonight. Delegation is a skill, you know. Like many of our honorees tonight, none of us, Charlie, Dave, and I, ever gave up on our dreams to go further, faster, and higher than others. And Charlie and Dave never quit trying to do more for others, more for their chosen professions, and more for the growth of aerospace and commercial enterprise in this country. And fortunately, both of them have the courage to both test their dreams and to lead others through risky terrain. That's what I want us to think about tonight. Many of us here grew up in one or both of those exciting 50-year eras of exploration and development, harboring fantasies of aviation or Buck Rogers or Star Trek. A product of those times, Dave has led us at Orbital through an amazing transition to ever more challenging operations in space and space technology. He never lost the dreams and the desire that he developed in a rural South Carolina county as a youngster and at MIT as a student. And never really lost the boyish good looks either, but I'm not supposed to point that out. Those of you who know Dave know what I'm talking about. But the main thing Dave wanted me to mention tonight wasn't anything about him or Orbital. He wanted to make sure that I pointed out the fact that Charlie has picked up the torch lit by some of his predecessors and is now leading us through the third era, the next 50 years of the commercialization of the space frontier. This is not unlike the people who put their fortunes and families on the line to develop thriving cities and states and businesses across the United States in the 19th century, not long after the explorers had risked their lives to open it up. Both activities take a great deal of courage and intrepid leadership. You'll hear more about Charlie shortly from a classmate of mine, Bob Cabana, who I'm sure will do a great job of introducing Charlie. But just a couple of more words about David and orbital science, since he's still not here as far as I know. The number of nominees we have here tonight is indicative of the good year we at Orbital had in 2013, with the Antares and Cygnus operations headlining, but certainly not the whole story. Dave Thompson, like many entrepreneurs, started with a dream and one or two shoestrings, and a wife who happened to have a job while he was trying to start a company. His goal over 30 years ago was to provide commercial services to space. We and other companies are now achieving that on a fairly routine basis. Though I hesitate to use that word because nothing to do with space operations is ever truly routine. He and others on the orbital team, before I got there, some of whom are here tonight, had the dream and foresight a few years ago to begin the development of the key systems, Antares and Cygnus, that enabled us to be selected as one of the two commercial providers of cargo and sustenance to the International Space Station, a key capability that will ensure our ability to maintain that critical outpost in space for the foreseeable future. Even without the shuttle, and to assure continued U.S. human presence in low Earth orbit, which I'll speak more about in a moment. So where do we go from here, and how should we respond to the many challenges we have to achieving those dreams of our youth? For many of us in this room, those of you who are my peers in this generation, whatever we are called nowadays, other than AARP eligible or late career professionals. I love that one. I've been in that category for over a decade. We can actually take inspiration from the younger professionals throughout our community and our industry by seeing their commitment, ingenuity, and brilliance at continuing to solve hard problems and to execute programs in incredibly innovative ways. And by the way, for those of you who might be newer to aerospace than others, you will soon learn, if you haven't already, that we are more of an aerospace community than an industry. I think it is similar in that way to what is almost always referred to as the medical community. What we do is unique, far-reaching, mutually beneficial, and of critical importance to the economic life and future of our country and humanity in general. For younger members here tonight, you can certainly take inspiration and confidence from the courage and leadership ability of people like Charlie Bolden and Dave Thompson and the other giants of aerospace you are sitting with tonight. Without the same such courage, such foresight, and such commitment from all of you, we will gradually lose leadership in the world. And worse, we will lose the future that our predecessors established by breaking the barriers, forcing through the hard programs such as Apollo, Shuttle, and Station, taking huge risks, and by building the organizations that make our industry successful. And if you don't think we're threatening that leadership, that video showed very well what the rest of the world is doing. What will our children say if we rob them of that future, if we manage risk to the point that we no longer take the big leaps, no longer do the hard things, as John F. Kennedy in this very city referred to the challenge of going to the moon? I want each of you to think about a couple of things. One is, how do you explain to your friends and family why we work in aerospace and do the hard things, such as launch rockets and build new programs? What is your 1 or 2 sentence rationale for you doing what you do, spending those long hours, making all that travel? And why we as a nation need to keep going into space? If every one of us in this room can't explain to a taxpayer or an investor or a politician why space in all its flavors is worthwhile, then we need to re-examine our own motivations. Secondly, I'd like you to think about human spaceflight and the importance of taking the risk to send people on trips to the International Space Station or beyond. It's one thing for me to tell you, based on my unique experience, why I think it's worth the risk. But each of you in this room should be able to articulate a sound reasoning for continuing, or if it fits, not continuing, human and robotic exploration of the solar system. My biggest fear is that someday we will be ready to send an expedition to a very distant and dangerous objective, such as Mars, or an asteroid, or a months-long stay on the moon, and we won't be able to find a politician or a taxpayer willing to take the responsibility for the risk we are incurring of that crew not returning. Because we haven't every one of us, told them why it's worth the risk to the country and to our fellow citizens. My challenge to you is to craft your own personal statement of why you do what you do in this community and why we as a nation should continue to reach further and further into space and into the future. Because someday the White House may call you, Mr. and Mrs. American citizen, and say, what do you think? Should I approve this mission? What would you say? Thank you very much for your attention tonight. Thank you very much to the R-NASA Foundation for another outstanding event. And again, my congratulations to Charlie, long overdue, and to all our stellar nominees, early and late career. And as many of us remember from that epic film of space exploration, Galaxy Quest, never give up, never surrender. Thank you.
ask you, advanced programs group. Now, I guess every company has an advanced programs group. I mean, is there like anything other than an advanced program? What else would there be? Remedial programs group? I mean, really? Because that's the one I'm going to be in, the remedial programs group. Our first award tonight is the Space Communicator Award. This award was first presented in 1997 and will be presented for only the 9th time tonight. The purpose of this award is to recognize professional communicators who have made important contribution to the public's understanding of and appreciation for the accomplishments of the U.S. space program. Our presenter this evening is someone very dear to me, Veronica McGregor. Before NASA stole her away, Veronica was my producer for some major space events, including Pathfinder and Polar Didn't Land Her. I'm sorry. I had to. She made sure that many times when I was about to say something or go on the air and do something, she'd say, that's just not going to fly, John. And I mean that. She did say that. Kept me from screwing up on the air too badly. She has done, not surprisingly, great things since going to NASA at JPL. In 2010, Forbes.com listed her as one of the 20 inspiring women to follow on Twitter. I think she's inspiring to follow anywhere, not just on Twitter. And just this past year, she won a Webby Award. If you ask what that is, because I didn't know, it is like the highest internet honor you can receive. She has been instrumental in developing social media at NASA. Ladies and gentlemen, last year's Space Communicator winner, Veronica McGregor. She is presenting this year's award to Colonel Chris Hadfield.
John. I have to say it is wonderful to be working with you again here tonight. I don't think we ever looked this good and got this dressed up when we were covering the space program and many other stories that we covered together for CNN. And welcome to life after CNN, John. It's great. Now, I am so honored to be back here again for a second year. And if you remember, about last year at this time, it was actually another recipient of the Space Communicator Award giving me the award, and that person is someone who's very near and dear to all of our hearts, and that's Miles O'Brien. Now, I would say that Miles O'Brien is a colleague to every single person in this room, whether through the NASA Advisory Committee or here on our NASA Foundation, or just because he has covered our community so well and has brought the public in to see what we do. So I called John Miles a couple of weeks ago to find out if he was going to be able to be here tonight, and he said he sent his regrets, but he is working on his recovery. I have no doubt that in a couple more months or so, he will be showing off his new bionic arm and putting us all to shame. But what I thought we could do tonight through the power of social media is to send Miles a virtual round of applause that I will tweet out to him. And I'm going to set this up on my phone very quickly here. I have to use Instagram because that will actually post it to Twitter, go figure. And when I give the cue, if you could all just give Miles O'Brien a round of applause for us to send out to him. Thank you. Now, this year, it's my great honor to present the next Space Communicator Award to someone who brought space back home to those of us on the internet, meaning virtually every human on the planet. Using Twitter and YouTube as his primary vehicles, Commander Chris Hadfield hit the wow nerve. He reminded people what we do in the space program is cool. It's both exciting and dangerous, and it's very relevant to all of us here on Earth. Now, he's not the only astronaut to tweet from space, and many others have done that and done it extremely well. But as the social media community grows, and it's growing by leaps and bounds all the time, there are just ever new growing audiences out there to hear our message and to hear them again. And that's whom Commander Hadfield was speaking to. He shared his everyday experiences living in space. And sometimes we need to remember to tell that very, very simple story. I think last year I gave the example, the most popular tweet from Mars Phoenix. It wasn't about the science, it wasn't about the engineering, it was telling people to go outside that night and look at the moon, because next to the moon was a little pink star, and that star was Mars. And just telling people those very simple things gets them excited, and then it opens their minds to learning more. And for Commander Hadfield, I heard him recently on an NPR interview where he talked about being in space and opening a can of peanuts. And he looked into it, and it looked like there were a bunch of little bees flying in the can because all the peanuts were up floating in space. And he looked at that and went, this is really cool. Who gets to see this? So he made a video, and he sent it back, and he posted it. And that kind of thing just connects with the public. They're seeing something through his eyes, just an everyday simple thing that reminds them that people are up in space, and what they see up there every day is so cool. When we do little things like that, we create that spark, and that's what we all need to remember to do. Step back a little bit, create that very simple spark with the public, get them in the door, and then we can start giving them all the rest of the information. Now, it didn't help also either that Chris Hadfield is a fabulous singer, and what could be better than a singing astronaut who also started his life on a farm, so it's almost the singing cowboy turned astronaut. It really hit a chord with everyone. His rendition of Space Oddity has almost 22 million views to date, so that's really quite amazing. So let's look at some of the highlights of the career of Commander Hadfield.
Welcome to the cupola. Ready to play a little music?
This rocket's burning bright. We'll soon be out of sight.
Living on the International Space Station and commanding a spaceship. It is a dream come true.
I have 1,000 tons, 90 minutes food to sun. A bullet can't go out this fast. This is ground control to Major Tom. You really made the grade. And the papers want to know whose shirts you wear.
Your dirty laundry actually gets incinerated in the atmosphere.
Wait a minute, you're kidding! You guys on the space station are throwing your dirty underwear out the window and it's raining down on us?
On to ground control, I've left forevermore. And I'm floating in a most peculiar way. And the stars look very different today.
Now, Commander Hadfield could not be here this evening. He's actually in Portugal, but he knows a little bit about sending messages from distances and using the internet to do that, and he has sent us this message.
Hello, and good evening to everybody at the Rotary National Award for Space Achievement, our NASA. First and foremost, I would like to congratulate Administrator Charlie Bolden, longtime friend and hugely deserving winner of the National Space Trophy. Congratulations to you, Charlie. And of course, congratulations to all of the other Stellar Award winners and nominees. I'm honored to be considered in amongst you today. And I really want to thank everybody who put in the effort and made the consideration to award me the Space Communicator Award. I accepted, of course, on behalf of myself and my family, but much more so on behalf of all of the other people that worked so hard to communicate the experience of spaceflight, specifically during the 5 months that I was on board the International Space Station. The group of people at the Canadian Space Agency that put in years of work getting ready in order to be able to share that experience so well. My own family, my son, Edward, who worked so tirelessly during the whole flight in order to share it through social media and beyond. And to everybody at NASA that has the structure and the foresight to make communication from the space station so much easier than it used to be. It had a big and measurable impact. Throughout my entire 21-year career as an astronaut, I did my absolute best to share the experience using whatever technology was available at the time, whether it was, like on my first shuttle flight, a ham radio and film cameras, right through now to on the station, where you could take a picture and then through the internet access of the computers on board, share within minutes the amazing perspectives and capabilities that we are privileged enough to see on board the station. I'm delighted now, having returned to Earth and traveled around North America, to see the echoes and the impacts that the work that we do has had. The direct and measurable changes in people's perceptions and their decision making, what the courses they're studying and what they want to do in life as a result of the opportunities that they see and the accomplishments that we've made. So to everybody at our NASA and everybody that's there tonight, of course, thank you. Congratulations to the nominees and winners. I apologize that I'm not there in person, but from somewhere around this small blue ball. Thank you very much.
I got my selfie. Even though he wasn't here, I managed to get a selfie giving him the award. So thank you all so much.
The Stellar Awards recognize the people behind the scenes of the space program who are making outstanding contributions to its success and who are vital to the future of our nation's space effort. This year, there were 124 individuals and 40 teams for a total of 164 nominations from 14 different states and 37 different organizations from industry, NASA, and the Department of Defense. We would like to thank our stellar ranking team of Dr. Glenn Lunny, Arnie Aldrich, and General Kevin Chilton for the very difficult task of ranking the candidates. Only a few can be winners tonight, but all are to be congratulated for their outstanding work. The identities of the winners in each category have not been revealed. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to invite two of our nation's astronauts to the podium to present the Stellar Awards. Please welcome Colonel Doug Hurley, veteran of STS-127 on Shuttle Endeavour and STS-135 Atlantis, the final shuttle flight, and his wife and fellow astronaut, Dr. Karen Nyberg, veteran of STS-124 on Discovery, and who recently served as flight engineer on expeditions 36 and 37 aboard the International Space Station. Please give them a warm round of applause.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It truly is an honor for the two of us to be here with all of you tonight to help present the Stellar Awards to some amazing people and teams. Speaking of amazing people, it was really great to see Chris Hadfield. I haven't seen him in over a year. He left the space station just a couple weeks before I arrived almost a year ago, so I didn't get to spend any time with him there. But I have to tell you, it's a little intimidating and not extremely easy to follow somebody in space who's so popular, entertaining, and talented. And he had set expectations pretty high. and it's a lot of pressure. There's only so much I can do with my hair to entertain.
And I asked the Russians if we could put her French horn on the Soyuz, but they said, not enough room, niet, no way. So I ran out of ideas after that. Excuse me just a second. Hey, what are you doing later? We don't get out much. We have, we have what NASA called a temporary medical condition a few years ago. And
who is now 4 and enjoys dinosaurs and Spider-Man and looks a lot like this guy.
Yeah. So anyway, just if we may digress a few times here because we really don't get out much. Any of you have young kids? You know that it keeps us pretty busy. Anyway, well, we better move on. As astronauts, we know firsthand that the safety and success of our missions are due to the exceptional people who go above and beyond what's required to make them that way. The stellar nominees here tonight truly represent the best in our nation's space program.
The Stellar Awards are important because they honor those who often work behind the scenes and whose careers and accomplishments may not be as visible as others. A panel of experts reviewed the nominees' backgrounds and accomplishments to determine the significance of their contributions to our space program. The breadth and scope of the nominees' work is truly amazing and proof positive that we have a wealth of unusually bright and talented people who are working to ensure that the space program has a very promising future.
It takes the dedication and effort of thousands to get us into space, and these nominees represent the best of our best. Without the contributions of all the folks involved in the space program, and particularly the stellar nominees we honor tonight, it would be impossible to ensure a strong presence in space.
At this time, we would like to recognize the Stellar Award nominees by asking all of them to stand. Please join us in congratulating all of the nominees with a well-deserved round of applause.
In case you haven't noticed, all of the Stellar Award nominees are wearing blue ribbons this evening, so they may be recognized.
We will present the awards in 4 categories, and we'll ask the winners in each category to come to the stage together to receive their awards. Names will be called in no particular order.
We're presenting awards in early career, mid-career, late career, and teen categories. Within each of these groups, nominations were solicited from across the space industry for nominees involved in government and corporate programs, as well as those involved in human and unmanned spaceflight activities.
As much as we might like to, we're sorry to say we will not have time for each winner to make remarks. Should we get started?
Let's get started. Our first Stellar Awards will go to those who are in the early stages of their career. There are 8 winners in this category, selected from a field of 42 candidates. As I call the names of the winners in the early career category, I'd like them to join us at the foot of the stage. The winners in the early career category are Kovia Maniapu of the Boeing Company, Adam Amar of NASA Johnson Space Center, Shanna Diaz of SpaceX, Captain Philip Swenson of the United States Air Force, Kerry Bodner of Orbital Science Corporation, Charles Gray of Booz Allen Hamilton, Gerald Weber of the Boeing Company, and Captain David Hilshafer of the United States Air Force. Please come join us at the base of the stage. Thank you. First award goes to Kovia Maniapu of the Boeing Company for exceptional commercial crew spacecraft test planning and flight test article design fidelity. Adam Amar of NASA Johnson Space Center is recognized for outstanding efforts in support of human spacecraft development and pioneering contributions to the field of multiphysics analytical tool development. Shanna Diaz of SpaceX is recognized for outstanding technical expertise and leadership of the reusability for the SpaceX Grasshopper and the F9R development vehicle programs representing critical steps towards the goal of building reusable rockets. Uh-oh, an Air Force guy. We got to give them some awards too. Marines can't take them all, right, Charlie? Captain Philip Swenson of the United States Air Force is recognized for exemplary technical skill producing Atlas V rockets and outstanding leadership in the successful integration, test, and launch of National Reconnaissance Office satellites. Now, Kerry Modner of Orbital Sciences Corporation is recognized for outstanding technical contributions in designing and developing the Generalized Predictor Guidance and Nutation Processing Control algorithm for the Minotaur 5 LADI mission. Okay, the Marines were out of it. Good job. I ran out of slides, buddy. Whew. I read that thing like 4 times. I'm sorry. Charles Gray of Booz Allen Hamilton is recognized for exceptional innovation and leadership in the ISS program office. That's how you write it. Okay, the next one is for Gerald Weber of the Boeing Company. He's recognized for outstanding achievements in advancing human spaceflight through excellence in leadership of propulsion systems, analysis, and design. Unfortunately, Gerald cannot be here with us tonight, but we will be sure to send him his award, or we'll just keep it. Thank you. Okay, the final early career award goes to Captain David Hillshafer, another Air Force guy. Congratulations. For exceptional leadership in implementing innovative solutions to provide a new on-demand weather capability for combatant commanders in the space community. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in congratulating all of the stellar winners in the early career category. We have 8 winners in the mid-career category, selected a field of 38 candidates. I would